I'm Shaq.
And I'm Ayala.
And this is TalkAbout, where we talk about the taboo. Now, today's topic, we're talking about...
Can you be in a relationship without self-love?
That's a tough one. Can you be in a relationship without self-love? Can you be in a relationship without self-love?
I mean, I feel like we have to start by defining what is self-love before you kind of go into that question.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think that varies for different people. But I think you need some level of it to be in a relationship. For me personally, self-love is having like accountability for yourself. In terms of if I say that I'm gonna do XYZ or I'm gonna be this type of, and I don't let other people overshadow my own thoughts about myself. So it's I think people think self-love is this all the time I love myself so much type of thing, which, okay, now I feel like I don't make sense, but in some ways, yes, you do have to choose to love yourself, and in a way you kind of have to be delusional about the way that you love yourself. But I think more than that, it's being true to yourself, to you, and you're the first person to be accountable to yourself and to respect yourself, self-respect, basically.
I feel like for the general, I think it's kind of whatever you need it to be. Now, for myself personally, because that's what we're talking about in this sense, personally, I know for me, and you kind of said it, but I'll put it in a different way.
Okay.
So yes, you have to have for sure that self-confidence in yourself, and you have to have that. To me, I know for me, I had to have that ability or get that ability to not care what other people think, right? Because most people in this world are going to try to bring you down, and now when they try to bring you down, guess what? That is in your head, and now you're going to be thinking of all the things that you're doing wrong. And when in reality, you should be thinking of the things that you can either do right or what you're good at, right? There's a different way. You see, you got to think about it like this. You could think about something in a negative way, or you could think of it in a more positive light. So yes, they both can come from, let's say, improving. But if you're thinking, oh, what am I doing wrong? You got to be thinking, what can I do to make it better? There's always a perception in that. And I feel like, for example, with me, that has always helped me, and that has gained self-love in myself, in which in turn gained self-confidence. For me, that is how I got that self-love. That's just one. But then for the general, yes, you could have that. You can say, okay, these are my abilities and these are my skills, right? So you can still have self-love without knowing that you're not necessarily good at something. And you can stick to what you're good at. You can stick to your skill set there because you know your capabilities. And I think that's another big point in saying how to get that self-love. So these are just a few things that can kind of help you get that self-love. Now for number two. Number two.
Isn't that a 3? For number 2. Sorry, anyways, carry on, my bad.
Now for number 2, you can have, because this show is obviously relationship based, and you can be in a relationship with self-love and without self-love. It's not like you have to get it before going into that relationship, or at least it'll be easier if you get it before the relationship. But obviously life is not like that, and we're also going to talk about how you can get it in that relationship, or at least get some levels of it. What is one way where we can get self-love in a relationship?
I think when you are in a relationship and you both learn to follow actions and be of your word, walk the walk, talk the talk type of thing, in doing that for someone else, you kind of pick up ways to do it for yourself as well, and kind of vice versa. So the more you, I don't know how to explain it, but it's kind of like a cycle. So it's the more you do it for yourself, the more you can learn to do it for someone else, and then it can work vice versa as well?
Definitely, because actions, as we all know, actions are stronger than words. I believe that's a phrase. I'm terrible at phrases. I'm sure you guys know.
Actions speak louder than words?
Actions speak louder. Actions speak louder than words. Listen, y'all know this, all right? I'm not the best with phrases, and I make up words and everything. So, there we go. So actions speak louder than words. And that is definitely true in a relationship. Because if you're someone who doesn't have the highest amount of self-love, or you can always increase your self-love. So now when you look at your significant other and you're seeing what they do, and you develop the same thing that they have already achieved or what they're working on. And yes, that is definitely a way of how to increase self-love.
Now I'm thinking about that, it kind of sounds like one person kind of has to have slightly higher amount than the other for it to kind of work out. Because I'm like, if both people are, let's say they have struggle with like self-loathing, for example, I guess the way that you project that in a relationship, like, would that still develop self-love? Like, so I basically, like, kind of what we started saying at the beginning, like, you still have to have somewhat of a baseline level of, you know, love for yourself, and an understanding of like having standards to say, okay, well, these types of things I will accept, these types of things I won't accept in a relationship, and then like sticking to that. So I guess like the most obvious example would be like someone who is abusive or who is emotionally manipulative, right? If you're like, I don't want to be in that kind of a relationship, and you hold that standard for yourself and say, okay, well, if I notice these signs and I notice this person is being this type of way, then I know that's a situation that I don't want to be in. So kind of like, yeah, so you still have to have some sort of a standard to say, well, this is what I will accept, this is what I won't accept.
Yeah.
Even though, yeah, so even though you may not have like all of this, the most self-love in the world, it's still important to have like a set of standards for yourself to abide by. And then, you know, you kind of build on those standards, being loved by that other person, and then loving that other person.
That's a good point, because if you have low standards, that is going to make it so much more difficult for you to gain that self-love. Remember, self-love goes together with self-worth. And when you feel like, or when you don't have that self-worth, but you will kind of make it more acceptable for people to disrespect you, and then that hurts you in the long run. That is actually a very good point. So it's good to make sure you have that high standard, and you let people know, especially if they try to step on you. You let them know. You stop them right in the tracks, because don't let anyone disrespect you. On a serious note, don't let anyone disrespect you. You got to keep that high standard in yourself. Yeah, that's an excellent point. You need that to help you become successful and show your worth. As stated before, you truly do need that. And it's easier said than done. It takes a lot of practice, especially depending on how you grow up. It does take a lot of time. Right? Because it's different for everyone in their lifestyle, and there's always a different environment and all these metrics. But no, it's very true. So that's an excellent point.
Yeah, and it's hard work. Like, I mean, I'm someone who's always going to advocate for therapy. I think that's something that's really important for humans in general to be partaking in, is therapy. Now, you know.
What? I don't need help? What you mean? Therapy?
Therapy.
I don't need no help.
Help with what? Help with what?
Therapy's for people who need help.
Not necessarily.
Really? Could have fooled me.
Could have fooled you. No, it's a
That's
tool.
That's a joke, y'all.
At the end of the day, it's a tool, right? But a lot of people have that mindset, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, at the end of the day, therapy is a tool that is gonna help you. It doesn't hurt. Like, yeah, you may feel like you don't need it, and you know, you might be like, oh well, what's the reason? Like, I don't have childhood trauma and da da da. But I mean, everybody has some sort of. Did you just mock me?
I wasn't mocking you. I was just putting myself in that situation. I wasn't, y'all. I was just putting myself in the situation.
Okay. Anyways.
Because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Let me lose my train of thought.
I'm
the train
sorry.
has left the station. Choo choo, it's gone without me. But yeah, just a lot of people are like, oh, well, what do I need therapy for? I don't have problems. I don't have any whatever. But it's like everybody has something that has affected them in some way and causes them to keep patterns that may not be beneficial for them. So I think that therapy kind of helps you, and especially if you're someone who doesn't think that you have those kinds of problems.
Yeah.
I think therapy is a great tool for introspection. Like, it helps you kind of look towards yourself, because this is someone that, yes, you're paying this person, but this is not a friend, this is not like a family member, this is someone who is a neutral third party who is coming in and holding up a mirror to you, and you know, they kind of not force you, but it's a gentle nudge to think deeper into things that you say or thoughts that you have, right? Because it's like, if you're like, oh yeah, I don't really have any problems, my life is great, and it's like, okay, well, tell me more about that. You know, those kinds of things, they kind of nudge you to talk about things beyond just like the surface level that a lot of people might assume life is great based on. I think that kind of ties into like self-love as well, because I feel like if there's, I don't know, for me, I wouldn't trust somebody who isn't willing to look into therapy, or who just has like negative Nancy mindset about therapy, and it's just like, well, I don't need that, right? Because then it's like you're not very open about this like introspective way of, and you wouldn't even consider it. Like, it's just like, no, I don't need that, I'm fine just the way I am, which tells me personally, it tells me that there's a lot of things that maybe you aren't ready to discover, or you just don't want to dive into. So then, going off of that, how does self-love impact like the success of the relationship then?
I feel like I should say this to maybe break it down for everyone to understand, and actually help me understand it a lot as well. Self-love equals stable, and self-confidence equals fluctuation. What I mean by that is that obviously you need self-confidence to have that self-love, but confidence always goes up and down, side to side, left and right, like a roller coaster, right? And self-love, when it's stable, now your confidence is gonna be more like this. Instead of it going all the way like this, it's like this. And that you're more sustaining that level. So whether or not you're good at something, whether or not someone tells you this or tells you that in a positive way or a negative way, you know yourself. You know yourself to the point where you're not gonna get too low or not gonna get too high. Right? And that is where the self-love comes in. But then now something else goes along with that. Because with self-love, what do you need? You need discipline. Right? And now for discipline,
well, I guess that more plays into like in the relationship itself. Again, discipline is a more stable concept, whereas motivation is a fluctuating concept. Like, I might be motivated today to go to the gym, but I won't be motivated tomorrow. Versus if I'm disciplined about it,
there you go.
I'm saying to myself, every day I'm going to choose to go to the gym. So same thing in the relationship. When you develop that self-love, I think it creates a discipline within you and your partner, if you're both developing that together, to say, okay, I am choosing every day to love this person, and I'm choosing every day to continue to choose this one person. Yeah.
I'm glad,
I don't know what I was gonna say with that.
I'm glad I have you as my wife to come up with better examples and phrases, because me, I can't do it. Okay. Sorry, I brought it back.
It's okay, you know, that's okay. That's why there are two of us.
That's why there are two of us. Yin and yang.
Is that how it is? Yeah, that's how you say it.
Yeah, I can't mess that one up. But
yeah, so I think that, or the positive aspects of having that self-love and how it helped build that success is you build this codependency on each other, because you're both disciplined, you're both choosing that discipline, and increasing that self-love to say, okay, well, we are gonna do XYZ and ABC. Like, we're gonna respect each other every day, and we're gonna kind of cover for each other. I remember it was Brene Brown, and she had this talk that she did where she spoke about, she and her husband had this system where, like, if they come home at the end of the day and it's like, well, I only have 20%. And then if her husband says, okay, well, I have 80%, so I got you. And, you know, but basically the premise is just them being kind to each other. So on those days when neither of them has any percentage, so it's like if you come home and you're like, I have 10%, and I'm like, well, I got 5, right? It's choosing to then say, okay, we're gonna work with this 15% that we collectively have and figure out, you know, you kind of have those tools to say, okay, these are the ways that we're gonna choose to be kind to each other. So it might mean for the next little bit, I give you a bit of space, or I make that time for you to be able to express whatever it is about your day, yada yada yada. And we both do that for each other, because it's like there's not enough for one person to kind of cover the other in that moment, energy percentage wise. So having that like codependency of saying, okay, we're being disciplined because we are developing this self-love, we're gonna make this work together, and we're both gonna cover each other, and we're both going to look out for each other.
But all of that just shows that in a relationship, that's what you need to grow and be successful. And to add on to that, when you get that level of self-love, guess what? In your relationship, you have that ability to be an individual.
Yeah, so you're still an individual. Like, two individuals become one, like that whole whatever come together, but you're still your own person.
There you go.
You're just walking in parallel with each other.
Now we can talk about how the lack of self-love and how that can impact a relationship. And you see, all this time we're talking about growth in you and your significant other. Now, when you don't have, either you don't have self-love or you don't have much of it, and you're not growing to improve that, guess what? You're gonna limit your potential in yourself and in your significant other.
That reminds me of an analogy of like pouring from cups. So if one person represents a pitcher full of water and the other represents a glass full of water, like halfway full of water, and you know, this person's glass might be full and it's complete, but if you guys are at two separate levels, so the other person is a pitcher, I'm gonna be pouring into the pitcher, the glass pours into the pitcher, it's never gonna feel full enough. It's never gonna feel like you're doing enough, or you're contributing enough, or you're bringing enough, providing enough love for that other person, versus, you know, someone who is a pitcher pouring into someone that you know, a glass, different vessel. It might be overwhelming for that person, because then you keep pouring and pouring and pouring, and like you still have a whole lot left, but now you've kind of given them their capacity. So just giving that analogy, it's like important for that to have that balance, right? So it's like, okay, I as the pitcher, I'm full, but I know how much to pour into you to be helpful. And if I'm running low, then you as the glass can pour into me without exhausting yourself.
But I have a question about that now. So now, because if the pitcher is pouring into the cup, and then when the cup pours back into the pitcher, now what about when the pitcher says, wait, this is not enough love?
Because they're at two separate, those are two completely different vessel capacities, right? So I think in a way it's important to have someone who is more matched, or if the cup and the vessel kind of come to the realization like, okay, we're at a big difference in capacities, just finding ways for the cup to be able to fill the pitcher without losing its own capacity. The cup may not be able to fill the pitcher all in one go. So it might be, so for example, let's talk about like energy wise. I'm kind of like mixing the energy in that comment I made earlier with this pitcher analogy. But if it's like, okay, we come home and we're both at, let's say you are the pitcher and I'm the glass. You're the pitcher, you're at like 50%. I mean, your 50% is higher than my 50%, obviously, right?
Oh, I understand what you mean.
But it's still
Okay.
50% at the end of the day, right? But it's like, okay, let's say it happens that I come home as the glass and I'm at 100% and you're still at 50, like then I'm able to pour into you. So it may not all happen at once. It might require like a level of patience on both partners of like, okay, there may be a few days in a row where, you know, we come home and you feel lower energy or lower satisfaction as the receiving partner, but it may not all happen in that one time. It might be like you might have to fill it over a period of time, and then also kind of like filling your own, I guess that's where the self-love comes in, right? Finding things that might help fill up your own vessel. So it might be like, I give an example, like for you it would be like having time to yourself to kind of like decompress from the day or whatever, right? So that might, I mean, that might not be the whole, that might not do the whole thing, but if you're a pitcher at 50%, that might take you from 50 to 60, right? Which means like I'm coming in as like a booster, I'm not having to like supplement the whole thing all on my own. And the same for you. So that self-love kind of takes the pressure off of both people to having, like, you're not there to fix everything for your partner, you're there to be like to kind of ease that pressure, and you know, it helps, but it's like you're not responsible for every single thing to fill their vessel.
Your vessel, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. You see, y'all, when she touches her nose, that's when I know I gotta be silent, because there's another banger right there. Another banger.
It's just so that I don't forget that I have a thought, because if I
That's a good ass thought.
Yeah, sometimes if I don't do it, I'll forget that I had a thought entirely, and then it's like, what was I gonna say? But yeah.
No, that's good. So now, in conclusion, right, after all that we've said, you can be in a relationship without self-love, but just remember that it can lead to low confidence, it can lead to a power struggle, it can lead to lackluster love, right? It can even lead to a loss of self, right? And that is why you need to continue building, and you continue to work hard and have that self-love, that self-discipline.
Yeah.
So you can
have like a baseline at the beginning of, like, before you go into a relationship. You want to develop that baseline, and then it's something that you still have to continue to work on throughout the relationship. So whether, you know, you have a high amount or you're at like a decent place, like it's something that I don't know, I feel like it's something that it's a lifelong journey of developing and I don't want to say perfecting, but kind of crafting that self-love for yourself. Yeah.
So keep on working on yourselves. Don't give up. As long as you have some type of progression, that says a lot. And give a round of applause to yourself. All right. So now, once again, this is TalkAbout. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment, especially about those phrases or examples. If you got anything better, I know y'all got something better. So if you got anyone,
put it down below.
Put it down below. So yes, like and subscribe. Yaga.